In this real events, a streamer made $50 million in stock, and so did his followers. He unwittingly becomes entangled in a dangerous game where fortunes are made and lost in the blink of an eye. As the line between genius and folly blurs, the quest for easy riches takes an unpredictable and exhilarating turn. Hello, welcome to I Am Movies. Today we're looking into the 2023 American biographical comedy drama film called Dumb Money, which is based on a true life story. But before we jump into the details, make sure to show us some love by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now, let's get right into it. Gabe Plotkin is a rich guy in Miami, Florida, and also the founder of a hedge fund company called Melvin Capital, with an estimated net worth of $400 million. Now, towards the end of the COVID-19 pandemic in January 2021, Gabe gets a call from his billionaire friend Steve Cohen worth $12 billion. He is the CEO of hedge fund Point72 in Greenwich, Connecticut. Steve had called Gabe to inform him that the GameStop stock he bought short on has now gained over $100 per share. On hearing this, Gabe begins to panic, so Steve advises him to dial in, meaning it's time to call in his other rich friends for support. The news of GameStop's share price goes viral, and retail investors can't believe it. After a while, Gabe gets a call from another hedge fund billionaire named Ken Griffin. Ken Griffin is the founder of hedge fund Citadel, and he's worth $16 billion. Ken asks Gabe if he has a minute to spare, but Gabe says he'll call him later. After dropping Ken's call, Gabe gets back on a call with Steve, who then reveals to him that all the buying has been driven by just one guy named Roaring Kitty. Now, Keith Gill, also known as Roaring Kitty on YouTube, is a lower middle-class man working as a financial analyst at MassMutual in Brockton, Massachusetts. Keith uses his spare time to analyze the stock market through a subreddit page called Wall Street Bets under the name Fucking Value. He also posts his opinions on it via YouTube live streams under his name Roaring Kitty. Now, let's go back 6 months earlier. In June 2020, GameStop's stock price was just at $3.85, and at this point, Keith's net worth is around $97,000. Keith had just bought GameStop and decided to meet with an old high school friend, Briggsy, who is also a financial analyst in Boston. Briggsy orders 2 Heineken beers, but Keith simply declines, saying he wants Hams, a cheap beer that only costs $4 even though Briggsy offers to pay. However, they continue to talk, and Briggsy asks Keith how he's been holding up, especially since he lost his sister Sarah. Now, during their conversation, Briggsy begins to mock Keith about his interest in GameStop shares, stating that he's been investing his money in penny stocks. However, Keith tries to let Briggsy see reasons why he has so much interest in GameStop shares, stating that he's even sold some of his properties to double down on his investment, which is about $53,000. Briggsy is shocked to hear this and decides to add their waiter, Ruby, to the discussion, telling her about Keith's reckless investment decision and how nobody bets against Wall Street. At one point, Briggsy suggests Keith is pulling their legs, so Keith decides to show them his investment portfolio, and Ruby is impressed to see it. Later that night, Keith gets home and decides to clear out the kitchen first, but his wife Caroline offers him a drink and asks him to rest first. Keith is worried that he might be wrong about GameStop, but Caroline convinces him to believe in himself and also advises him to go make a video about it. So Keith goes live and introduces GameStop to his audience. Keith tells them that his major reason for picking interest in GameStop stems from the fact that it is undervalued amongst other reasons. Now, Keith already has a huge number of followers, and most of them are just looking for ways to raise money, like Jenny Campbell, a nurse and a single mother of 2 who needs money to clear out her mortgage, having a negative net worth of $45,644. Now, while Jenny watching Keith live, she gets startled by one of her aged patients, making her break a coffee mug which she also accidentally steps on. Later, one of her co-workers, Chris, helps her to treat her injury. While doing this, Chris mocks her for investing in stocks. However, Jenny tries to explain how the whole stock thing works to Chris, but he doesn't seem interested. In the end, she ends up buying 700 GameStop shares worth $2,695. We also have Marcos Garcia, another stock buyer looking to raise money to take care of his parents. Marcos is just an employee at a GameStop retail store with a net worth of $136. Marcos tries to get advance pay from his boss to add to his investment, but he gets turned. Marcos doesn't like how he's been treated, so he decides to invest all his $136 on GameStop stock. Meanwhile, Keith continues to make videos, and a lot of people begin to buy and hold GameStop shares. Later, Caroline reminds Keith that he is on daddy duty, so he decides to bring his 1-year-old daughter close to his desk. However, Keith soon gets distracted by the sound of his car outside, and he soon realizes that his younger brother Kevin had taken his car out without his permission. Now, at the University of Texas, Riri is another retail trader who's big on GameStop shares. Now, having been a long-time stock trader, Riri introduces stock buying to her lesbian partner Harmony during a Truth or Dare game night. At this time, Harmony William has a negative net worth of $186,541 due to student debts, and her partner Riri Pariseau has a negative net worth of $145,182. Now remember, this is still like 6 months ago. Gabe is on the call with Steve talking business. So Steve tells Gabe that his friend Ken Griffin has just put in $57 billion on short positions. Gabe says it's a smart move since there is a pandemic and the whole market is in a free fall. But as they continue, Steve draws Gabe's attention to a group of retail traders who call themselves retards. These people have been buying GameStop shares in an attempt to push its price up. Even though Steve thinks it's a good investment for them, Gabe thinks it's funny because retail traders always lose. Gabe also states that his company has been short on GameStop since 2014, adding that the company is a complete disaster because they've had 6 CEOs in 2 years. At this point, Gabe decides to go short GameStop with an additional 600,000 shares. Steve tells him it's dumb money, and Gabe says he's happy to take it. On the other hand, the retards get a wake-up call about Melvin Capital's move, and they activate a plan they call Diamond Hands, stating that they are on a mission to take GameStop to the moon. The whole retard community gets this message, and they declare war on Melvin Capital. Now, fast forward to Christmas, and GameStop shares are still up. So, Keith decided to send out an appreciation message to everyone who believed in him, and also decided to encourage them. At this time, Marcos, Harmony, and Jenny all watch Keith's speech with smiles on their faces. Meanwhile, on that same night, Jenny meets a man at a gas station and decides to compliment his car, comparing it to her 2003 Honda Accord. Thinking about how much she earns as a nurse with mortgage debts, she knows the only way she will be able to afford his kind of car is to invest more. So she decides to buy 600 more shares with $91,000. Now, at this time, Harmony is very much interested in stock. Riri asks Harmony if she's going to sell since she's now making a profit, but Harmony says it's not about the money. Harmony says her dad couldn't get a pension because a hedge fund manager had bought the store he worked as a general manager just to declare bankruptcy after sucking it dry. That's why she finds herself drowning in student debt since her father can't afford to save up for her college anymore. She now understands that it is the same thing these Wall Street guys are trying to do to GameStop. Meanwhile, 2 billionaires Baiju Bhatt and Vlad Tenev, the co-CEOs of Robinhood, get ready for an exclusive interview. Now, Robinhood is a popular trading platform with over 20 million users, and the reason why it is popular is because Robinhood offers commission-free trading to retail traders, making it easy for them to be a part of the market too. However, during this interview, Baiju tells the host that they make their money by charging interest on people's accounts and through payments for order flow. The interviewer also learns that they are also working with Citadel Capital, which is also owned by Ken Griffin's hedge fund company. However, Vlad never intended to give out that information, so he decides to distract her by revealing that Robinhood is looking to go public soon. And it works. Days later, Keith and his family visit Sarah's gravesite to pay their respect. Now, after a tennis match, Gabe tells Ken Griffin that his grandfather once told him that he never borrowed $1 to start his business, stating that it was a point of pride for him. Then, they begin to joke about how all the companies in their short portfolios have been shutting down. However, Gabe mentions GameStop as an exception, stating that the company has been losing money in the past years, but their shares have been going up recently because of retail buybacks. Although, Marcos is now on the verge of losing his job as his manager begins to task him, asking him to look for ways to sell more games. However, his GameStop shares keep soaring. In fact, GameStop shares just made 90% in just one day, and Keith, who is now worth over $11 million, celebrates. Now, at this point, Keith and Caroline are faced with a decision to either sell or hold their stock. However, traders like Jenny, Riri, and Harmony have all decided not to sell till Keith does as part of the Diamond Hands concept. Also, people on Wall Street Bets keep posting motivational messages for everyone to read and keep the faith, stating that they are on a mission to teach Wall Street investors a lesson. One day, Gabe's wife asks him if he's worried about the short squeeze frenzy going on, but he says he believes that most of these retail investors will soon start selling once they decide that it's gone high enough, and the price will come crashing down. Gabe also backs up his point, with similar scenarios like Ackman and Herbalife, and then the Piggly Wiggly store story of 1923. Now, the story of Piggly Wiggly is that the founder had taken a loan to buy back 99% of the stocks after the store was about to shut down. So, the stock goes up 50%, but as soon as they stop trading on the shares, retail traders cover their positions, and the founder finally declares bankruptcy. Now, back to the present day, January 2021. GameStop's stock price has gained another 220%, and Gabe is now panicking. It's all over the news, and everyone just can't believe it. Keith is making millions every day as GameStop continues to rise to new record highs. On the other hand, Gabe's Melvin Capital loses $2 billion in just 2 days. Gabe tries to grant an on-air interview but later panics. Later, Gabe's wife walks in and asks him how much they are now losing, and he writes $6.8 billion on a stick note for her because he couldn't even stand to say it anymore. At this point, Gabe puts a call through to Steve and Ken, and they both agree to infuse $3 billion into Melvin Capital. Jenny hears this news and begins to complain about how hard her life is for Chris, stating that nobody came through for her even when her husband left her with 2 kids to care for. Chris reminds her that he'd said she can't win against the rich guys, but she shows him Keith's $22.8 million balance, stating that if Keith's still in, she's in. On one Thanksgiving Sunday, Keith decides to break the news of his newly achieved wealth to his parents. On hearing this, his parents and his brother Kevin begin to convince him to sell, stating that $23 million is a huge sum of money, but Caroline explains to them that Keith knows exactly what he's doing. Riri and Harmony also continue to contemplate whether they are holding or selling. However, Jenny has refused to sell, but knowing she's now worth almost $500,000, she finally decides to go on vacation to Florida on a first-class ticket. And Marcos is also now worth $175,651 in stock. Days later, the price of GameStop hit $350 per share, with reporters calling it the French Revolution of finance, and it also drew the attention of the White House. So Keith is now worth $47 million, and he keeps gaining more followers as people hail him for starting a revolution that has never been seen before. The next day, the Wall Street Bets Reddit page is taken down for hateful and discriminatory comments, stating that it violates Reddit's code of conduct. However, Caroline senses that it must be a setup from the big hedge fund guys trying to stop people from communicating. Later, Keith loses his job after receiving a call from his boss. He's been getting calls from reporters about his outside activities interfering with his job. That same day, Riri and Harmony finally sell their stock, having made over $140 grand. Later that night, Vlad gets a call from his manager Norm that DTCC is requesting $3 billion from them to clear all the trades coming in, or they'll get shut down. Now Robinhood doesn't have that much money, and they know it, but Norm promises to speak to Ken Griffin the next day. However, Riri and Harmony find it hard to sleep that night, feeling like they've betrayed other retail traders, so they decide that they'll buy back the next morning. But the next day, everyone soon realizes that Robinhood has blocked the buy option, causing GameStop shares to plummet, leaving Jenny with only $8,456. Now, Vlad had agreed to block the buy option in exchange for DTCC to lower the deposit fee from $3 billion to $700 million. With this, people begin to protest against Robinhood, Ken Griffin, and Gabe. News and reports start flying all over, and all these three are being subpoenaed by the United States House Committee on Financial Services. Meanwhile, Keith also gets subpoenaed as fans and reporters gather outside his house to support him. His own was based on suspicion that he might have tricked the public to make himself rich. It was all too much for Keith, so he later decides to go to the track to distract himself from everything. Kevin also joined in to give him emotional support. They take time to talk about how much they miss their sister Sarah. Kevin jokingly recalls the time he was dared to run naked at night in high school, and they both laugh about it. Now, the next day, Wall Street's Bet and Robinhood are back online. Riri and Harmony realize that Keith didn't sell any of his shares, losing $30 million with only $17 million left. Seeing this, everyone begins to repurchase GameStop. Meanwhile, they all begin to prepare for their hearing, with Gabe trying to twist his testimony to look like he had a humble beginning. On the other hand, Caroline, Briggsy, and Kevin act as congresspeople to Keith as they throw possible questions at him. Now, on the day of the hearing, The House Committee on Financial Services begins to question all 4 major players in the GameStop. During this hearing, Vlad finally admits that trading Robinhood was not free. After that, Keith Gills gave a 5-minute oral testimony and later asked if he had inside information about the stock. Keith Gills lists all his reasons for investing in GameStop and ends his statement with, "As for me, I love the stock." And just as a gangster that he is, Keith decides to buy 50,000 additional GameStop shares the next day, and after 3 weeks, it triples. At this point, Marcos quits his job in style after cashing out $181,090. Harmony's net worth is now up by $271,519, and Riri is now worth $295,055. On the other hand, Jenny now has a negative net worth of $13,284, but she's still holding her GameStop stock shares. Keith also gifts his brother Kevin a Porsche for being supportive. Sadly, Melvin Capital finally shut its doors in 2022 after losing billions. Robinhood also failed after its IPO debut, causing Vlad and Baiju to lose their billionaire status. 6 months after a series of investigations, evidence of all that went down between Robinhood and Ken Griffin a night before the buy option was cut off came public, but the court later dismissed the case. However, Keith's last post was made on April 16, 2021, with a net worth of $34 million and has since retreated from the public eye. Nevertheless, we cannot deny the fact that Keith started a movement that changed how the financial market operates, especially leading hedge funds to start looking out for those dumb money. And the movie ends here. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.